Welcome to another episode of That's Some Crazy Shit with Kelly and James. My name is Kelly, and my co-host with the most is Mr. James. What's up, dude?
How's it going? Good to be here again.
Yes, it's another interesting, or I shouldn't say that. It's another crazy shit episode.
Yeah.
This dude blows my mind. This is the second time we've had Sadhu Dah on the podcast, James. And the first time we had Sadhu Dah come on, he talked about exorcisms that he does. He performs exorcisms, right? And so he told us all about that. And that was enough for me. We're done with the exorcism topic.
I sat for a half hour with my jaw hanging open listening to him. I was like, are you kidding me? Your first encounter is a possession?
Right? So, but we wanted to bring him back because we wanted to talk more about other things that he does. So we had him come back a second time. So like I've been trying to say, we are talking to Sadhu Dah today, but we're not going to talk about exorcisms. We're actually going to talk about magic and rituals.
Yes, because he knows so much about this also.
Yes.
But go listen to the other episode.
Yeah, go listen to the crazy shit on the exorcisms with Sadhu Dah. That was a lot. But I'm glad he came back. I think we should just get right to it and bring him.
Let's do it then.
All right. Welcome to the podcast, Sadhu Dah.
Sadhu Dah, thanks for coming back. Last time you were here, you did have some crazy shit, no doubt. Talking about the exorcisms and stuff, yeah, I think Kelly and I are good now on that subject.
Yeah, we're good.
We didn't even scratch the surface.
I know.
We're good. The visuals that you left me with, I'm good. I get your point. Good luck with that.
Yeah,
I don't blame
I want
you.
our listeners to go listen to it because that was a good episode.
Yeah, that was crazy. But I want to talk about what you know about magic and rituals. Me and James have had shows on the past about magic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people have told us that, words are spells, right? And, magic, you can have it in an amulet, or you can say it through words, or just whatever. So I'm interested to hear what you know and what you do when it comes to magic and performing rituals.
Yeah. So, I have a few different lineages that I have proficient training in, from the Mao Shan sect of Taoism, under the tutelage of Dr. Wilson Yong, who is a High Taoist priest, as well as in the Tibetan Bonpo lineage under a couple of different Lamas and Rinpoches that I've trained under. But probably my favorite, and what I tend to use the most, or is one of the heaviest elements of even when I mix traditions together, is Thai Wicca. So like Theravada or Thai Buddhist traditions have a lot of mixture with animistic practices. So you have, I often describe it as, because people have more of a visual with like shamans of Native American, lore, talking to spirits and kind of like communicating with like, the heavens and, etc. So those are more like animistic traditions, like think tribal. So in the 14th century, they tried to do away with the animistic traditions, and they were like, we're Buddhists now. And that didn't quite stick. And so what ended up happening was you had these animistic traditions that blended in with Buddhism. And in Buddhism, you don't actually have a god. So you have, these heavenly deities. So oftentimes I will do like a ritual, like I kind of mentioned in the last episode about the Sudpanyak ritual. And so you call like Taoism. And so you'll like work with these specific deities who kind of have certain specialties. When I have clients that I help with like legal matters, or they have really bad luck, I'll often refer to Rahu. and Rahu is kind of known as like the karma eater, and he's considered to be more like a devil, but like that would be an improper translation. So he's more of what you would call a deva. So he's like a god in his own right, you know, he's a very, very powerful spirit, but he's like a worldly spirit. He's not a heavenly deity, but that doesn't make him evil in the traditional sense. Think more desire based. So I will do like workings with like Rahu. One of the ones I did recently for a client, there was kind of like a lot that was being asked of me, and I had prepared the food offerings, and I'd done like the incense and the kata, the prayer, the chant to call Rahu. And then as I'm in the middle of this ritual, Rahu wants to experience and taste the food with a physical body. So you can kind of see where this is going. So I had to briefly, and this, you know, make no mistake, this took a lot of energy out of me. I couldn't do any magic for a couple days and I had to rest, but I allowed a god to possess my body to eat physical food, basically as part of like sweetening the deal so that he would want to do this working for my client.
Wow. Let me kill your wow.
So let me ask you a question. When it comes to magic, right? There are all different types of magic, or are there all different types of magic, or is all magic kind of the same? Does it draw its power from the same place?
Yes and no. So yes, they're all the same in the sense that the first key component behind any powerful magical working is imagination. You have to get into imagination, and eventually you get to a point in your practice where that imagination is converting to literal chi. It's converting to literal energy and is going from the thought plane into the astral and is being manifested, and then can even kind of cross up into the fifth dimension. So like you'll be able to at some point convert that imagination into something real. So I'd say without imagination, no matter what you're doing path working wise or what background you're coming from, that is the critical key component behind all magic. So in that sense, yes, they're all the same, but they're also very different. So if you take like traditions like Peo Meombe, you know, they're very much heavily based on spirit possession and using blood sigils. So they'll cut themselves and they'll bleed the sigil of spirit onto the ground, and then allow the spirit to come into their body, and then they'll give like these prophetic you know, kind of like visions or prophecies will kind of be relayed, or messages of spirit will be conveyed. Whereas you might have somebody that's in a Wiccan path working and they're using candle magic and scrying into the flame, or a bowl of water with a little oil on the top and using those kind of divination matters. Or you could even have you know, aspects of certain Buddhist meditations which are focused on kind of like communicating with a higher version of yourself, you know, to put it, you know, in a very simple way, and kind of accruing, you know, knowledge and wisdom from across all timelines and varying planes to like then convey that into something usable and then translate it. So, I mean, it's very different, but it's all very same in some aspects.
So have you ever had to blend certain, you know, forgive my, you know, I don't know terminology, but let's say something from a druid aspect to what you're doing to come up with a hybrid to help with a demon or something like that?
Yeah, so when I'm doing anything that involves like somebody that's been like negatively affected by like fae spirits, like nature spirits, I've learned specific wicca and stuff from Thai traditions under a couple different ajarns and some of the bhikkhus, you know, monks that have taught me, you know, different things for different kinds of spirits. But some of the stuff that I was taught to me completely in like Thai, And so I kind of had to piece some of the missing, parts of that together with aspects of training that I got when I was in a Wiccan coven, and I became a high priest in that Wiccan coven. And so I learned like certain rituals and spells. And so like I'll take that and mix that with the Thai Wicca to kind of, balance what I didn't have there, some of the missing components. And I'm only able to actually do that. I would normally not suggest somebody just go mixing traditions, but it's only because I understand like the spiritual science behind it. And so I know like, okay, like, for example, if you're, a scientist or, you're working a certain field, like, or even just common sense says, don't handle raw mercury. Or if you're going to handle mercury, you need to have, special protection and things in order to be able to work with this element. But if you were working with like gold, obviously you don't really need any sort of special protection, but depending on what you're doing with the gold, you might want to be careful because it's super malleable and it's super soft. So it'd be easy to damage it if that's not your intention to flatten it or etch on it or something. So it's kind of like the same with some of these spiritual practices. It's like, I know with this, I can do this, but I can't do that, or I shouldn't do this, or this is a boundary here. But if I kind of take a little bit of this that I know works and can integrate with this, then I can kind of piece these two together and blend them in a beautiful way.
Can anybody do magic?
I would say anybody could do magic, but some people are going to have certain limits, and those limits will be based on their cultivation of chi, so their own, spiritual power and energy, their mindset, as well as if they have a limitation of a certain religious or spiritual background. And even in some cases, specifically with heavy Afro-Caribbean based magics, if you are not of that bloodline, or you are not initiated also, not even just not of that bloodline, but not initiated, you should never, ever dabble in that, because that's a very specific current and very specific type of energy that you're working with, and it will literally consume your life force if you are not initiated into it. If you're initiated into it, you're kind of protected and you're abiding by certain rules. There's a certain element of you being safe within those parameters. But if you don't meet those parameters, all bets are off, and that will literally consume your life force.
Hey, and that being said, people, don't just mess around with this stuff. People think, oh, it's all fun and games, but yeah, this is serious stuff, people.
I've had numerous cases that I've gone and helped people with, whether it have been like exorcism or, doing cleansings and removing attachments from people that were like what I call weekend warriors or dabblers. And they're just like, messing with some stuff on Google, or they read, some old occult books, grimoires, and they try stuff. And then they're like, holy crap, like things are kind of happening. And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, I guess I understand the aspect of like when I was younger, like you kind of had to prove some of this stuff to yourself to make it real. But at the same time, unless you're under the guidance of a teacher, or you actually really know what you're doing and you have experience with that, you're going to end up having to call somebody like me to come and help you out.
If you know to call somebody like you
no kidding,
to come help you out. I mean, especially if you're just kind of playing around. And that's why I ask if anybody could do magic, because when I listen to you talk, I think about all the books that are out there on how to do magic. And I'm not saying anything, candle magic, whatever magic, mirror magic, whatever magic that is. So I'm trying to figure out like, where are these levels of magic? Is that magic okay for anybody to dabble in? Because that's kind of harmless magic, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Are there levels of magic?
There are definitely levels of magic, most definitely. So I would say like, let's break it down into like a ceremonial context. So you have a neophyte, you have a mage, and you have a magus. So a magus is a master of magic. These are people that can perform and do some really complex rituals, cause some extraordinary and truly magical change. And then you have a mage, who is somebody that's like an adept. They're well trained, but they're still, you know, working and you know, studying quite a bit, and they might not really have all the answers. And that's not saying a magus does either, but you know, they're in that middle field, and they could do some advanced workings, but they kind of know their limits on stuff. And then you have a neophyte. Most people who are just approaching magic aren't even like on the neophyte initiate level. And a neophyte is somebody that's like brand new baby, learning how to do everything. And so I'd say if you're learning how to do this stuff, most people are kind of coming at it with an emotional magic background. That's kind of the magic that I'd say everyone can do. Not necessarily everybody should do, because it's very rudimentary and kind of like archaic. Emotional magic would be like, you know, you focus on an emotion and you channel it and you put that out there to the universe, kind of thing. So in general, when you do that, you're using like your own raw energy, your own spirit. So if you make something really good happen for you, that can also kind of take a certain aspect of your health and diminish it, because you're pulling on your own reservoir. You haven't learned how to channel energy from other sources. You haven't learned how to use things as like batteries, or approach an altar and use it appropriately. So you're kind of just literally using your own life force to do things. So I don't really suggest that. But in the very beginning, I kind of have to get some students to just tap into it just the slightest bit to realize it's real, and to kind of empower them so that I can start giving them basic tools and a foundation to build on, which then becomes solid and they can do some real stuff with that.
So you teach magic?
I do teach magic.
Cool. I didn't know that. I just thought you performed it for people. So can people basically come to you and say, will you do, you know, blah, blah, blah spell for me, or can you help me make this happen? And you know what I'm saying? You'll do a quote unquote spell for them?
Yes, I have a lot of people that come to me for ritual for hire, and I'll do specific rituals for whatever it is that they want. I'd say really the only thing that's off limits is I do not curse people. I do not perform things that are going to harm or go against someone's free will. So for example, when I do like love workings and love spells, so like I'll have like some amulets that I'll make for people that'll make them more charismatic, more attractive, that'll kind of help their speech, that will show their best features and make them more likely to find a lover. Or I also will do spells within that kind of manner to help draw like a lover back to them, but not against that person's will. So more of like that person will start to be on their mind more. And then if that person who wasn't necessarily thinking about them before is now thinking about them more, they're thinking about the more fond aspects of that person. Now they could still choose to be like, well, nah, she cheated on me, so I really don't want to go back to her. You know, so like that person's going to have their own ability to be like, nah, not interested. But I can definitely put the spark of interest there. And if I were to do something that was like negative against somebody, the only time that's going to happen is if I am removing a curse or removing black magic put on a client. I do not ground it out. I could, but I send it back onto the person because I believe in people learning their lessons. So like, you know, I had this one client who had gotten cursed. They kind of thought they knew who it was. I sent it back to the origin. And then within the next couple days, that person got arrested and indicted on major drug trafficking charges, and then got very ill within a week. Like just horrible things were happening to that person. It wasn't that I did that to that person. It was the energy and the curse that they put onto this other individual. I just threw it right back on.
Yeah, just coming back, yeah.
You know, they did that to themselves, honestly, you know, if we're going to be literal.
That's cool. Yeah. So in your workings with magic, if somebody was interested, let's just say, in learning more about magic, and maybe they want to even one day do magic, where would they start? There's so much information out there. Right. And I'm sure there's a lot of misinformation out there as well. But where can somebody start to go to find good information, and if they're really serious about becoming a practitioner?
I mean, honestly, I could say, you know, books aren't really going to do you a huge service because, one, you don't really know anything about magic yet, so how do you even know what are going to be the good books? And two, even if you find some good books, nothing you study, no matter how well you study, is going to prepare you for the real thing. It's like a doctor who goes through medical school. Sure, they're learning so much vital information, but then the first time they do their residency and they're out there like in the physical, engaging with these patients for the first time, it's kind of like all that knowledge goes out the window, and that they're really learning for the first time in person. So it's kind of the same thing. It's like I will give students resources and, you know, specific books and things to read and study while I'm actually teaching them and having them perform rituals and giving them effective like techniques and practices to like build their energy and, you know, strengthen their abilities, their own natural abilities. And, you know, I'd say the thing that I had that I'm very fortunate to have had, and I do not take for granted, is I had very, very powerful, wise, just compassionate teachers. And I would say that would be the first step, is to find yourself, even if it's not me, find yourself a teacher that you can vet, that you feel you can trust. And, you know, I'd say one of the red flags is if a teacher always wants to keep you underneath them. A teacher should always want their student to surpass them or to encourage them to get what they can from them, and find other teachers and just kind of really take their path. One of my like top students, his name is Gabriel, and he's got several other, I was his first teacher, and I taught him so much, and I am so proud of this student. He's literally my crown jewel. And he now has this other teacher, his name's Orpheus, that he goes to Costa Rica and he trains with, and like he'll do silent meditations and coconut fasting for like weeks, and like, you know, he's doing this entirely different thing than what is my specialty with this teacher. But I kind of laid the groundwork and I prepared him to be able to take that path, and I highly encourage and support him on this path because he is now doing what he needs to be doing for his own spiritual journey. So I definitely encourage a student to find a teacher that's going to encourage them on their path and not try to make them a carbon copy, and also give them resources and not hoard knowledge from them and only give them little droplets at a time. Definitely need a teacher.
So Sadhu Dah, how does someone become a student of yours?
So I vet my own students. To be quite honest, I turn away more students than I take on, because I go by the intention of their heart. And knowing that once I have a student and they approach me, if I take them on, I am becoming responsible for them. I am giving them the tools to reality. And if they go out there and they make a muck of things in the spiritual world, then I have spirits and I have things that are going to be coming to me asking questions, you know, so like I have to take that into account. Also, you know, if they harm other people or they choose to be irresponsible with magic, you know, I have to clean that up. And so like, I'd rather not deal with all of that. So if I have any doubts about a student at all, I'll just tell them I'm not the teacher for them and they need to find somebody else. Basically the first step was a student would have to come to me, let me know exactly what it is they want to learn or think they want to learn. And I will kind of consult my own spirits. I have like a huge altar back here with a bunch of spirits, and like I have this main one, his name's Pong, and so like I talk to him on a regular basis and I consult with him. He's like my little counsel. And if he has a bad feeling about somebody, like I trust my spirits, you know, I work with them on a regular basis. They see more, hear more than I do. So especially when I work with clients, like I'll consult with my spirits and they'll tell me stuff that is like eerily on point, very specific details, and it'll freak some of my clients out. So like if these guys are telling me, you know, like don't trust this person, whether I get a feeling or not, I'm going to go with what my spirit guides are telling me. So yeah, you come to me, see how I feel about teaching you. Let me know if, you know, what I teach is something that's interested to you. And if I feel that we are a good fit, then I'll take you on as a student and I'll teach you some very interesting things that you're not going to find in books. A lot of oral traditions I've been taught, especially from some of these monks. This stuff's not written down.
Oh, just strictly oral, huh? Wow, that's
it's intended
incredible.
that way.
Wow.
That's really cool. So let me ask you a question. Is everybody capable of magic? Do we all have the same level playing field in the beginning, I guess is what I'm saying?
In the beginning?
As people, as humans, do we all have the same abilities? And then as we get older, maybe some be able to enhance theirs more than others. Like, you know, some people say see spirits. Some people say they can tell the future. Some people say they can do magic, but not everybody can do these things. So that's my question, is like, are there just chosen ones that can do this stuff, or are we all capable of doing these things?
I like using analogies because I feel like they're very helpful. And so like, let's say you have a high school and you have people that are trying out for the basketball team. So some of these people are just going to be your natural all-stars. They're going to be on the A team. They're going to be starring varsity. You know, people are going to be, you know, fans chanting for them in the crowd. You know, like these are your star players. And they're probably, some of them might, not all of them, but some of them might even go off to get NBA contracts. You know, so you have that aspect. Some people that are just naturally gifted, and with a little bit of direction and training, they could go levels beyond. And then you have some individuals who are going to be like solid support on that team. You know, they're very capable. They can do well. And, you know, they're going to be able to get a lot from it. You're going to have other individuals that are kind of barely making the cut. They could do magic, you know, everybody has a chance to join and try out for the basketball team, but some people aren't going to make the cut. Some will barely make the cut. Some will be solid on the team. Some will go above and beyond. Some will be all stars. You know, so I kind of look at it in the same sense that, you know, we as humans, you know, going back to like, you know, the dawn of man, you look at different cultures all across the world. We are deeply spiritual beings at our core. We are very spiritual beings. And a lot of us have lost touch with that. So even though something should be natural for us, because of society and the way that the world has changed today, some of us might have to work harder to get back in touch with that part of ourselves. And some of us might have certain limits. You know, I'd say, for example, if, you know, you have, you know, a certain condition that could work against you, but it also might not. I have a gifted psychic that I work with from time to time who's just absolutely amazing, and she has lupus, and you know, she's in and out of the hospital quite a bit, and she has a lot of health issues, but I swear to you, I've not met a more gifted medium in my entire life. I mean, she is just so fascinating, incredibly powerful. She's never been taught how to do what she does. She just is that in tune, but she has a lot of health issues. And I've met other people who have health issues, and you know, it's a huge struggle for them to just even feel their chi, let alone be able to do anything with that energy. So you know, it kind of varies across the board. Just like, you know, anybody can learn how to play basketball, can learn the rules of basketball, but that doesn't mean you're going to be a good basketball player just because you learn how to play basketball. So I would say, in a sense, we are all kind of even at the beginning, and that we're capable of learning and we're capable of applying certain things, but some people are going to hit the boundaries and thresholds way before others ever even come close to.
I like that analogy because that does exactly answer my question. So thank you. I always just wondered, just because, you know, there are some people that like you, and then there are some people like me. You know, I think magic is fascinating, but I don't do magic, right?
Right. And you don't have to.
But I like to hear about it. I think about it. I think it's cool, but it also sounds like a lot of work. And yeah, you know, I'll be honest, it sounds like work. So it's cool, but yeah, I like to hear about it. And I like the idea of we all could do it if we wanted to. It's like kind of if you have a car in a garage, you may not want to go anywhere, but it's just nice to know that the car's in the garage. And if at any time you can leave. That's how I like to think about magic. I like to think that it's out there, and if you really wanted to learn, you would always have the possibility to learning if that's what you so chose to do.
Well, and just like the car in the garage, so when you get in that car and you choose to go somewhere, you got to take into account that, accidents could happen on the road. You can lose control of the vehicle.
Yeah, that is true.
It can be very unpredictable. And so it's the same with magic, especially, and this is why I really highly encourage people that have an interest in it. I say either commit or don't. Either you can learn about it, you can kind of study it, but like if you're actually going to practice magic, like you kind of, this is something that my first teacher told me. He was like, once you take this step, there is no going back. Once you start to mess with the spirit world, things start to learn about you, things start to notice you. You kind of mark yourself in a certain way, spiritually speaking. And so you can never go back. Life will never be the same. And that's, I've had some students that kind of like went off the rails and ended up in mental hospitals, and then tried to like go back to like a monotheistic religion and just dumb themselves down. Not saying that a monotheistic religion is dumbing yourself down, but compared to where they were expanding their consciousness and then forcing themselves back to something that wasn't even really working for them in the first place. I've seen people just kind of lose it going into this, and a lot of it is kind of based on the concept of burning out. You got to pace yourself. This is a marathon, not a sprint. If you're going to get involved in the magical world, take your time, learn, practice, develop your skills. Don't just go balls to the wall crazy. I've been there, done that, and I learned the hard way many times.
That's good advice. That's good advice.
So, what insurance, sticking with the car analogy, would you suggest that students take? Is there a precaution that, other than, do you suggest a talisman or a spell that they can use?
Yeah. So, kind of like, getting in a car, like, wear your seatbelt, right? That's going to help. It's not necessarily going to prevent you flying out the windshield, but, it's better to have that seatbelt on than not. And I'd say one of the things that would definitely be helpful, and in some instances, I would say almost necessary, especially if you're going to be, really committing to this, is, I'm not saying that you have to get it from me, but like find somebody that is beyond your skill level and more proficient, that you can get a talisman or an amulet from, to give you protections and stuff. It's kind of like having training wheels while you're learning to ride a bike. So, it can kind of protect you a bit. And then as you grow and you learn more and you become stronger, then you can get different types of amulets and talismans, or you can start to really develop a strong altar that you can work with, or learn how to strengthen your own energy. So I'd say in the beginning, like, having like a totem or a talisman or an amulet or something that can kind of help protect you where you don't necessarily know how to protect yourself first, definitely be useful. I'd almost even say necessary in the beginning.
Very cool. It is so fascinating. But we are running out of time, Sadhu. It's always a pleasure. You're always welcome to come back, because again, like you said, we've only scratched the crazy shit surface. So
yeah, now I want to know about talismans and all that stuff.
So
hey, I'll come back.
Hey, we'll just keep having you come back, because I think it's fascinating what you do, and I always appreciate you sharing your knowledge with us. So thank you.
Yes, you're very welcome.
Thank you.
All right. See you next time.
See you next time.
Serious, man. I can't even believe the life that he has.
Can you imagine?
I mean, seriously. And this is why we do the podcast, so these people can come out and tell their stories, because you don't talk about this stuff like, hey, guess what I did this weekend, Kelly? I had to perform a ritual so this, guys could get rid of a curse. You're like, God damn.
And you're like, that's not even the crazy part.
Oh,
the crazy
I know.
part is that the God that I needed to help me wanted to taste the food. So
so
yeah,
you have to slide on in there.
I had to let him go ahead and, take over, possess me.
No big deal.
No big deal. I'm all good now. What'd you do?
Serious? Oh, I vacuumed.
Pretty much did some laundry.
Yeah, I did laundry.
Sadhu Dah has an interesting life. It was very interesting what he said about magic and the different levels and everything. And I love his analogies. I do. The analogies help me kind of understand what he's trying to say. So I love it when he uses analogies.
Yeah, that was very helpful. It does put things, in perspective and stuff. Even that, man, his knowledge in magic is...
Yeah. If you want to, learn more about Sadhu Dah, all his information is in the podcast description. He has a website with all his services, all the things that he does. It's crazy. We should probably have him come back because we've just scratched the surface again with this dude. I love having him come on. I do. Yeah,
he's a good guest.
He is a good guest. So you can get at us. You can go listen to past episodes on our website, which is thatsomecrazyshitpodcast.com. There you can find that past episode with Sadhu Dah and some other crazy shit episodes. James has a blog. You can drop us a note. And you can even check out all of our social media, which is Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter.
Keep your minds open, people.